I read a lot. I love to read. And I actually have your books here. Look at that.
Yeah. Awesome.
Awesome.
They did such a beautiful job packaging them. I really love the way it does together.
And Litera, the publishing house, is like the best in Romania, and they're the biggest, and they're like professionals into details. They go into details. So they really take care of every book that they publish in Romania. And I'm actually also working with them. I'm putting voices for their books. So, like
for the audio.
Yeah, for the audio
like that.
Oh, I love it. I love it because I love to read. And when I read out loud, this gives me the opportunity to like go into the characters, like I'm playing in that story. I'm like an actor playing in the story. And also, I think that it's very meaningful for my career as a woman and also as a TV host and whatever I do here in Romania. It's meaningful for me because I think I give back to the community something that is important, because education is through reading, right? Yes. So when you read a lot, you have a lot of experience, you have subjects that you can like open a conversation, you are sociable, you are sure of yourself, you feel more powerful, more up to any conversation with at any level. So I think that books are very important. So for me, to get to know you and to get to take an interview with you, it's an honor, because I really respect writers. I really respect writers. And I want to ask you, how did you come up with the idea of writing? I mean, when did just one day, Sylvia Day, did just one day something clicked in your mind?
Well, I was 12 years old.
Wow.
And I was 12 years old, and my mom was a huge romance reader. And I was sitting at the kitchen table. I was doing my math homework. It was so boring. I hate math. Even to this day, I'm just not, I think, you have a creative brain or a mathematical brain. Some people are fortunate enough to have both. I definitely did not have that mathematical side to my brain at all. And she came in and she put this book on the table next to me. And it had this very racy picture on the cover. I actually have it, so I can show it to you.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, hang on just a minute. I'll show you this.
I will. Oh, yes, it's racy indeed.
There's kind of like a ring light going on there, but if you can kind of see like what's going on. So
it's like
this on the table next to me, and I'm looking at it going, okay. And she goes, listen, don't worry about your math homework. I want you to read this book, and then I want you to marry a man like that. And then she left. She left the room. So I was like, okay, one, I have permission not to have to finish my math homework. And two, oh my God, what is this book? So I started reading it. It took me 4 days to finish it. I would stay up late at night with the covers over my head and a flashlight and, go to school and be exhausted. I just couldn't stop. I was so in love with it. But when I got to the end of the book, I was so depressed that the story was over, that I wasn't going to be able to keep reading it anymore, that I wasn't going to be able to spend time with these characters anymore. I mean, I was now we call it a book hangover, right?
Yeah.
Where you're just, you've got that lingering sense of just feeling terrible. And I said, I want to write books and I want to make people feel as horrible as I feel right now. The next week I had one of my teachers in English had us write an essay on what we wanted to be when we grew up. And I wrote an essay that I was going to be a romance novelist.
And that's what you did.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I did.
You went on a straight line with this idea in your head. You really loved that book. That book really clicked your mind that you want to be a romance writer. So that's the story behind your romance novels, which are bestsellers in over 40 countries. And you've been on the #1 place in the New York Times and USA Today and Sunday Times and all over. So how does it feel now that your dream came true? I mean, is it just something that happened and you think that it was an easy path, or did you can you tell me a little bit about the difficulties that you encountered, or maybe some
Absolutely.
ideas that you had and you started writing and then you just like, like ripped off the paper and you said, oh my God, this is such a wrong idea. It's a stupid idea. I don't like it anymore. Did you do that? Did you start something and then you just threw the book and the story?
Well, no.
No.
I sat down. No, October of 2003, I sat down to write my first book. And by then I had all those years of thinking about wanting to write a book. And so the ideas just started pouring out, right? It was very easy for me to get through the end of that book. It was very easy for me to start the next book. It was very, and I just kept going, right? So by the end of the year, from October to December, I wrote about 5 different stories. And then I started sending them out. And I was thinking, these are so good. These books are so good. And I sent them out. And within 2 to 3 weeks, I start getting the rejection letters.
Ooh.
Yes. And some days I would go out to the mailbox and there would be 4 rejection letters sitting there in my mailbox. And I would have to open them up and look at them. And I had a blog and I was writing about my publication journey. And there was that one day when I got 4 of them at once. And I said, you know what, maybe I'm just not meant for this. Maybe I'm just not cut out for it. Maybe I don't know what I'm doing. I was an honors English student, but just because I know how to actually put words together doesn't mean I'm a storyteller. Doesn't mean I know what I'm doing. Doesn't mean I can do a good characterization or anything else. And I said I quit. And I wrote this blog about, I don't have time to fail at something, I need to focus on the things that I'm good at and go from there. And so I turned off my computer and I, had a glass of wine and I sat down on the couch and watched TV, which I hadn't done in months because I was writing all of these books. And then I went to bed and I woke up the next day and I turned my computer back on and I got back to work. And it's, this is what I want to do. If I need to be better at it, then I need to work harder. That's all there is to it. I just need to work harder. So that's what I did. And there's an author named Lori Foster. She's a New York Times bestseller. And she had a contest where you could send her 3 pages of your story and she would read them and she would pick 20 of her favorites and she would send them to her editor if she liked them. So I thought, okay, this is my chance to get my work in front of somebody who can actually publish it, right? Instead of going through all these agents and everything else like that. At this point now, I've been really working on my craft and, story time, but still I didn't want to send anything that I had already sent out and was rejected. So I sat down and I wrote 3 brand new pages just for this contest and I sent it in. And she picked it as one of the 20. And then it went to the editor. And then the 20 of us, we all got together online and we're rooting each other on. And so then we start getting notices. Oh, I just got off the phone with her. Oh, she just called me. Ooh, so, 20 of us. So I'm watching 1, 2, 3, 4. They're all saying these, oh, she really liked my story, but it's not for her, or, oh, she really liked it. She wants me to send her more, or, all these different things. I'm just waiting and waiting and waiting. I'm number 20. I'm number 20. So it's hours later, before I get that phone call and I pick it up and I'm thinking, this is going to change my life, right? I'm going to publish my first book and all my dreams are going to come true. And she started, oh, thank you for sending your, and Lori loved it. And, and I just heard her voice and I said, wait a minute, you're not going to buy my book. And she's like, yeah, no. She's like, but I really like your voice and I can call my friend Cindy, who's an editor at a different publishing house, because I think you'll probably fit with her. And, I'll make that call. And I realized she's just trying to get off the phone, and I'm just like, I can't, if I let her hang up, I lost this chance,
Yeah.
So I said, if you think another editor at another publishing house could make money off my work, because that's the only way an editor is going to pick something up, right? Is if they think it's going to make money. Why wouldn't you think it would make you money at your publishing house?
Exactly.
And she got very quiet. Later on, I learned that when Kate Duffy got quiet, you should get very scared. She was a very scary woman. But I didn't know better. I didn't know any better that when she got quiet, you should be very scared. But then she started telling me all the things that I was doing wrong. All the things. And she's like, and I'm like, wow, okay, hang on. Let me get my paper. I need to take notes. And she goes, you know what? Here, let me tell you what I'll do. She goes, I'll mark these 3 pages up and I'll fax them to you. Because this is 2004, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Email things or anything. And she's like, I'll fax them to you. And I said, okay, cool. I need to get a fax machine. But all right, I give her my phone number. I tell my husband to go to the Office Depot, get us a fax machine so I can hook it up. And I wait. And she sends it to me. And it's literally covered in corrections.
Oh
and I
God.
look at 3 pages and go, oh, no wonder she doesn't want to publish it. This is horrible. Like, oh my God. But I looked at it and I said, I can see what she wants.
Yeah.
I just need to do it for the rest of the story. So I did. I sat down and I took all those edits from those first 3 pages and I put it through the rest of the story. And then I packed it up and I sent it in the mail. And I sent her a note saying, I just wanted to let you know that, I fixed it, I think. I sent it to her and I waited 2 weeks later. I got a phone call from her and she said, unlike the first time I called you, this time I'm calling to buy your book. Wow. And I was ecstatic. Yes, I was totally excited. But she said, you know what? You got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of work to do. But you've shown me that you're willing to do the work.
Exactly.
And as long as you're willing to do the work, I'm willing to help you.
Oh,
and
great.
So from then on, she launched my career. Within the first 24 months I worked for her, she bought 6 books for me. Before I even thought of what they were, before I even had any idea of what those stories would be. Just every time I turned a book in, it was better. And she said, if you keep improving like this, I want those 6 books from you, because by the time that 6 books come in, we're going to have something really great here. But if she hadn't been willing to be an editor and to tell me how to write, to teach me how to write, I don't think I'd be here today. I owe a lot to her for that.
Yeah, I can imagine. Do you believe that you were born under a lucky star?
My mother says my mother says that. And luck, of course, certainly has, something wonderful to do with a lot of great things that happen, right? But luck is not enough to compensate for a lack of hard work. If you're not willing to work hard and take chances, all the luck in the world won't make you successful.
And you need a little bit of talent as well, but mostly a lot of work and dedication and passion, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And determination, because as you said before, you might have just, given up. You could have quit, right? You had those moments when you were so frustrated that people didn't see what you saw in yourself, that you could have quit. And that determination and ambition kept you going. So that is it's your character, right? But maybe people now, watching you and hearing you speak might get this, this thing in themselves, that they need to believe in themselves more than others believe in them. For this is the perfect example. You are the perfect example that impossible can become possible, kind of,
I would hope that people would be inspired. I think that's probably the greatest compliment that anybody can give to anyone. When somebody tells me, I read your book and it made me want to be a writer, that is absolutely thrilling. It really is. But one thing I think is really important aside from having confidence in yourself is having enough humility to say, maybe I need to learn a little more.
Yeah.
So that I can actually, there's a difference between, having confidence and respect in your work and believing that it has value, and also being able to say it could be more than it is if I put a little bit more effort into it. And I think, a little bit of elbow grease in addition to that confidence is really important.
You are willing to listen and to change for the better. And you were willing to listen to others when they were telling you, okay, like this is a little bit the wrong way. You should be like on this way. You should do things this way. Is there a recipe in having a successful book? Like writing a successful book, is there a recipe? Like you need to have, I don't know, so much romance, so much sex, because like, okay, now this is a question that for these 4 books is like, oh my God, like I'm a woman of 52 years old, darling, I'm at menopause. And I thought that my libido was like going down. But after I read these books, I was like, working it, baby.
Good.
So I'm asking you, where do you get your inspiration and all of this, like how do you say, like the truth behind the curtain, like you just wrapped it up in like I'm talking about the Crossfire series now. Mm-hmm. You wrapped everything up in romance, and you get that big powerful man. Of course, he's rich. Do they really need to be rich all the time?
Well, in the case of the Crossfire series, Ava is very wealthy, right? So the heroine is a multimillionaire herself.
Yeah.
And by having both of them being on the same socioeconomic rung of the ladder takes money out of the equation, right?
Yes.
Financially, they're on the same level.
Yeah.
And that allows them to have the places where they're not on the same level, emotionally and intellectually, and they're just, that takes that part out of the way. And I felt that was important because we're talking about 2 childhood sexual abuse survivors. So they're dealing with the trauma, they're dealing with triggers from that trauma, they're dealing with coping mechanisms from that. If you throw in insecurity about money, that's an added level of stress that wasn't beneficial to the story. Mm-hmm. So, and of course, Gideon is a fantasy, right? To a certain respect, there is actually a Gideon Cross in the world. I was in New York. I was visiting one of my publishers. I was walking from my publishing house to where my agent was, and we were going to go have drinks. And as I'm walking down the street, this man walked out of a building in front of me and stopped at the corner. He was beautiful. He was just beautiful. His suit was perfect. He was confident. And then a town car pulled up to the sidewalk, and he got in the back of the car and he drove off. And he had been scrolling through his phone while he was out there. And I just was thinking, as he drove off, where's that man going? Is it a woman that's on the other end of that phone conversation that he's having? Is that where he's going right now in his car? I mean, just all these things. And I wanted to write, that story. And as I'm looking on the street, there were women that were walking toward me that had stopped, just like I stopped. We all literally stopped on the street. So since then, I've had readers, email me, reach out on social media and stuff and tell me, I saw Gideon today. They saw him on the subway. They saw him, at the gym. They said, and whoever their Gideon happens to be, I love the fact that for so many women, he's not just a fantasy. He is, they saw him somewhere. And I think that's lovely. But part of having, the billionaire hero is the fantasy of it,
It's like in your books, you always have that Prince of Arabia from your mother's book.
Right?
Right?
Yeah.
It's that powerful man that takes care of the woman, loves her, shares everything with her, makes her feel like a princess. I mean, all of us want this kind of man in our lives, even if for some of the women, he just remains a fantasy. But there you are, you have the books that you write, Sylvia Day writes, and we can immerse in those books, in your stories, and we feel like we are Eva, right? We could be her, right? And we could live this life that she has. So did you ever think of like if someone from Hollywood would come and say that they want to make a movie out of the series Crossfire, would you be like happy?
Well, the Crossfire series has been continuously under option for over a decade.
Wow.
It was picked up by Lionsgate. It was with Lionsgate for about 3 years, and then it moved to a different studio where it was for another couple years, and then it's been in talks with a different studio. It's been a long process. The number one thing is finding the right screenwriter to adapt the books to a different medium. And then of course you run into an issue of, as things change in society and the things that we're talking about, like Me Too happened. And then you have a book about 2 survivors, right?
Yeah.
Then you have screenwriters that come in and they want to make it topical, and then find that if they make any sort of changes like that, the rest of the story doesn't work. So we've had script after script after script generated, right? We've had multiple producers that come on board, multiple studios that come in and, want to take the adaptation process has just been crazy. Some authors are really fortunate in that their books are adapted very well the first time. In my case, I'm one of those authors whose books, by the time it comes out, we're going to talk about how many years it took us to get to that point.
Why don't you do it? This is a challenge.
I had a producer ask me that if I would write at least the pilot script for an adaptation for it. I'm under contract for books. And as much as publishing houses are like, we would love to have an adaptation because it sells books, the publishers who are waiting for new books for me, who have already paid for new books for me, are like, we want you to deliver the work that you've already promised. So I'm spoiled for choice is really where it's at. And I feel like, when we find the right screenwriter, it will work. The other part of that is that they're not talking about it, adapting it into film. It's always been planned to be developed as a long-running series, because the anticipation is that to discuss a storyline such as Ava and Gideon have will take many hours, not just 2. So the screenwriter would also then become the showrunner, the person who is responsible for the creative direction for the rest of the series. I can't do that.
It's too much.
It's too much.
It's taking too much of your time. But I know you told me that you write easily and that ideas come pouring out of your head. But
that was in the beginning. That was in the beginning.
Exactly. That's now that you have the pressure of the publishing houses giving you money in advance, maybe to write the books. Is there like a one day you just wake up and you don't have any idea, you don't know where to start the story? Do you get this kind of blockage sometimes?
Yes, absolutely. I think every writer gets writer's block. If I'm in the middle of a story, I got writer's block because I call it author intrusion, and it's something for other writers to think about, right? Is author intrusion. And that's where in your head, you had an idea of where the story was going to go. And as you're writing it, you're kind of forcing it to go in that direction because that's what you had planned, instead of letting the story evolve organically and maybe surprising you and going in a different direction. So if I if I do that, I'm going to hit a dead end. That's what's going to happen. And then I'm going to sit there and stare at the wall going, what's wrong? Why am I not getting anywhere? The writer's block can last anywhere from a day to 6 months before I realize, okay, I'm trying to make the story be something it's not. I'm missing where it should go. Then I have to go back to the beginning and read it and look, where was it supposed to possibly go in a different direction? And I didn't let it go that way. Once I find that point, the writer's block disappears and I can go ahead. I can move forward. As I've gone, it used to be the first year that I was writing, I think I wrote like 10 books. And then the next year it was like 8. The next year it was like 6. And then it got into a schedule of 4 and, 2. Now I'm at the point where it takes me years to write one book. And
really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And it's not about not having inspiration, but I think that I'm thinking your brain must process a lot of words and ideas because you have books written in parallel, right? So you've got these characters for this book, this story for the other book. So they mingle in your head and you don't get confused with all this, the subjects and the drama and the characters and the...
When I started out, the reason why I was able to write multiple books in a year was because if I got to a point where it started to slow and I would start picking at it, I would move to a different story and then write that, until I got to that point where and then I'd switch back to the other one. And I found that going back and forth like that kept me very inspired and it enabled me to produce a lot of words.
I see.
I've gone out, I can't do that anymore. When my stories get more and more complicated as I go, the character stories get more complicated. Their emotional state gets more complicated. The plots around them get more complicated. And so trying to weave all that together, I don't have the opportunity to go and switch to a different story, right? I'm trapped in that. And, the other thing is that as a writer, of course, when somebody picks up your book and they see your name, they have an expectation for what that experience is going to be. This is a Sylvia Day book. I know what I'm going to get. I know what my hero is going to be like. I know what my heroine's going to, right? But you also want them to open it up and go, this is better than the last book.
Or different.
And it's different. And it's surprising. And I didn't expect that. And I didn't see it coming. And that requires you as an author to continue to improve. And the process of improving as you move along becomes very complicated and very time intensive. And it takes a lot longer to produce a work. Yeah, it was a very hard learning process for my publishers to go from you're turning in 4 books a year and now you're turning in 1 book every 4 years. That's,
wow.
You know what I mean? But then of course the goal is if I put out 4 books and we sold 1 million copies, I would rather put out 1 book that sold 1 million copies than to have 4 books that combined did that. And that to get to, to have one story perform at that level has to be really, really good. And, in order to be really, really good, it's really, really hard. And it takes a lot of time.
It takes a lot of time. How long did it take you to write the series Crossfire?
So it took me about a year to write Bared to You. That's the first book. And then that released in April. The second book in that series released in October. So the second book went really quickly because I had already set up everything that was going to happen in the first. That took a year. Then it went to 6 months. Then it went to a year for the third book. From the third book, it started getting really complicated, right? The story is getting really complicated. I've got all these different plot threads going on. It took a couple of years before the fourth book came out. And then it took like 2.5 years for the next book to come out. Now, altogether, you know, from the time I started writing it to the time, you know, the book came out was about 6 years. But from the time the first book came out to the time the last book came out was a 4-year span. But of course, there was the writing time before it got published. So, I mean, yeah.
So your fans really love you if they had the patience to wait for these books to come out, you know, because it's like when you look at the, you know, at movies or serials on, I don't know, Netflix or HBO, and you really like that movie and you really want it to continue, and you get so frustrated that it stopped, you know, and then you're like waiting and waiting and waiting for it to come back. So I can imagine, because now the publishing house in Romania, Litera, they gave me the 4 books all together. So I could read them, you know, like constantly without having the, you know, the impatience of seeing what's happening in the next book or in the next book. So it was a very good read. And I want to ask you, because there's a lot of documentation here. I mean, it's like you have psychology, a psychiatrist, you have emotional traumas, you have a lot of sex scenes going on over there. And I'm just asking you, like, okay, do people want this in your books? Like the romance is always linked with the need to have this like sex, love, you know, kind of going to extremes a little bit. I mean, do people want that, or they are prejudiced in this direction? What do you think? Because, you know, like,
my readers certainly expect that the sexual interaction between the characters is part of how they communicate and the relationship progresses. So every writer has a theme, right? I have a friend of mine whose theme is family. So all of her books revolve around the importance of family, the reliance of family, right? My books revolve around surviving. All of my characters are always survivors, and of different things, you know, just because life throws a lot at us, and it's who we are when we recover from that, when we rise from that, that really informs the rest of our life. So in writing about survivors, of course, you have to write about trauma, and writing about trauma, you know, you write about the recovery of it. For my characters in all my books, from the time I started writing, they have a very difficult time verbalizing what it is they want to say. And because they're not verbalizing, they're not communicating. When they're not communicating, you have problems, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
For them, in the bedroom, in bed together at their most vulnerable, intimate state, they can communicate without words all the things that need to be said. With Gideon and Ava, they have a lot of sex, but each time they have sex, there's a lesson. There's something that one of those characters is teaching the other one about them and how best to understand them, how to deal with them. It gives them insight. So all of those are very important, especially for 2 people for whom sex was used in a violent way against them. They had lost power in a sexual situation from their past. Together, they are able to empower each other and to overcome hangups, traumas, you know, so forth that they had from those previous experiences. So for them, yes, they have a lot of sex, but in all my books, there's similar sorts of dynamics in that they're communicating and expressing themselves physically in ways that they can't verbally. My readers expect that, absolutely. People who are not my readers, you know, I've been on a number of talk shows, I've done, you know, a number of interviews with journalists. Some of them are very dismissive. Some of them are rude, or just, you know, all around unpleasant about it. They don't find any value to it, and they don't like romance. They especially don't like romance that has a lot of sex. They feel like, especially for male journalists or male interviewers, that I've created an unrealistic expectation for a man. And of course, when you ask women, what is it that you like best about Gideon or any of my other characters? What they say is not that, oh, he is a multimillionaire and he's great in bed. And about, those things are part of the fantasy, right? What they say is he's very protective. He's very attentive. He's, very, very careful with her. He listens to what she's saying. That is not and shouldn't be aspirational. That's the way you should be in any relationship. And that doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. So to say that that's a fantasy, I think is unfair. It's unfair to say that the fact that he communicates and he listens and he wants to make sure that you're safe, and that's not a fantasy. That's just should be the bare minimum of what you expect in a romantic relationship.
In a relationship, the man and the woman, they should respect each other, because if you don't have respect, then you get the problems. And because we were talking about sex, it's like, I asked you that because I know that people are prejudiced they do sex in their own beds, but they never talk about sex because it's like a taboo subject. And oh my God, you shouldn't talk about that because it's like, it's not nice, or it's something that you should be like ashamed. I was a TV host and I hosted 3 years in a row. It was called the TV show Intimate Journal. So I had sexologists and psychologists and even real people coming and talking about their sex life, and people like you in TV shows, they were saying, oh, you are a sex guru. I said, no, I'm not. I am not a sex guru. I'm just someone who is trying to put on the table some subjects and just try to be very open-minded and open with those subjects. They shouldn't be taboo. That's why I really appreciated your books, because the story and the sex scenes and everything, it's like humans are sexually linked. That's who we are. We shouldn't be ashamed of our bodies. We shouldn't be ashamed of our thoughts. We shouldn't be ashamed what our partner wants to do with us in bed, if it is consensual, of course. Right. We should liberate our traumas from the past and what our, grandparents or parents told us that we shouldn't do this or we shouldn't do that. So I think that your books are educational.
Oh,
it's not only romance. Really, it's not only romance, because I told you I'm a 52-year-old woman, and when I read your books, you kind of showed me ways that I could make love with my boyfriend, with my partner, that I didn't think about. And I thought, oh, that's nice. That's interesting. Oh, I would do that. Oh, I would love to that he would do that to me, or, so it's kind of educational. I really enjoyed it,
Thank you.
It was liberating.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, I see that wonderful chair that you're relaxed in that chair and you have your pets around you. Is there a favorite place where you like to write, or I don't know, a city, or the ocean, or just a chair somewhere? Or
Well, so it depends on where I'm at. When I'm in my office, I have a beautiful desk, and I never sit at it. I have a green velvet sofa that's tucked under a window, and I spend most of my time writing there. And my family was at first, they're like, you have this beautiful desk, and it's all set up, and you sit up on the couch. And that's just my spot. That's where I'm at. We have a place in Seattle that we go up to in the summer, because Vegas, of course, gets very hot. It's nice to open the door. It's nice for the kids to be able to go outside. And, in Vegas in the summer, they tell you don't go outside, stay indoors, drink a lot of water, don't, exert yourself or anything. It's just not safe. You can have a heat stroke.
Yeah.
So it was horrible to sit around the house and go, oh, we can't do anything or go anywhere. So we go up to Seattle. It's beautiful. Open the doors, enjoy the breeze. It's lovely. There I have a little chair in the corner. It's a bird chair, which is, from like the 1950s. And it's vintage, and I just like my sofa, and I love it, so I'll sit there in the corner and I'll write. I need quiet. I can't have
I can see that. You need quiet.
These guys are used to giving me all sorts of trouble though. But it's especially because they hear your voice, so they're like, "There's someone here. Who's here?"
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, they like to curl up around me. They'll be on the sofa next to me or down by my feet, and you know, we all just kind of they take a nap, and I write a book.
And anyway, they release good energy. So I'm sure. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I mean, I'm the same with my dog and my cat. I mean, when they come and I cuddle them, or they just come and they see that I'm, I don't know, sad, preoccupied, or just tired. And when they come near me, I just light up. I mean, I get that energy back, and I know how it feels. So could you please tell me, I mean, we are at the end of our interview, and thank you a lot. I mean, you're fantastic. What project are you writing a new book now? Can you
so I have I have a new series coming out. It's called the Blacklist series. It's going to be 2 novels. So we've had a bit of a delay from you know, the last book that I released in 2019, because the hope is that we'll release the 2 books fairly close together, since it's one story, you know, told over a number of pages. I hate to leave people on a big cliffhanger going, what happened? You know, so you like to let them know that the next book is coming and it's going to be close. So I've been working on that. It's set in the same world as the Crossfire series. This couple works in the Crossfire building, and it's a lot of fun. It's a little crazy. I've enjoyed it so much, but it's a couple that were married and are married and have been separated for a number of years, and then get back together, and the dynamics of a relationship in which somebody is very familiar to you, and through marriage you have a certain amount of possession over. He's mine, she's mine, you know, sort of thing. And yet you've had such a length of time to kind of evolve into different people that you're essentially strangers to each other in a lot of ways. So you have this sense of familiarity and ownership, and then you have also this sense of being with somebody who's a stranger. And you know, a couple that's obviously, the way I write, very sexually connected, you know, have a lot of sexual chemistry, and having that be more of a negative than a positive, in that it puts a Band-Aid over things that maybe need to be looked at, right? That need to be addressed.
Yeah. So you cannot solve problems with sex. Right. Not all of the problems. Right. I think you just wrote my story. Yeah. I want a commission. I think that a lot of couples or women mostly will see themselves in these books that you will launch, because if you're writing about relationships that go sour, then of course all of us, we've been there. I mean, I was also in a marriage 25 years, and then I just divorced, because as you said, you cannot put a Band-Aid on something that is completely destroyed, because the people are not there anymore. They're not a whole. They just separated because they just grew into different persons. I mean, you're like staying in the house with a stranger, you know. Yeah. So yeah. So I want those books. I want those books with autograph.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
The thing with writing fiction is that, yes, it's fiction, and yes, there's fantasy to it, but at the core, if you can't emotionally connect with what's happening to those characters, the story will never work for you. The beauty of romance is that it's about deep characterization, with, you know, a medical thriller or a spy thriller, but you have this plot that's, you know, driving everything forward. It's the mechanics of that, right? In a romance, you're opening 2 people up, you're dissecting 2 people and revealing all of their flaws and insecurities. And those things have to come from the real world. And when it does that, you should pick it up as a reader and go, I see myself in this. Maybe not 100%, but something they do, something they say, some feeling or reaction that they have should resonate with you and go, yep, I know. Yeah, I know exactly how that feels. You know, for good or bad, I know exactly how that feels.
You know what? And a question popped up in my mind. I have to ask you: do your friends? I'm sure that you have a lot of friends, but are they like a little bit afraid of opening up to you because you might like steal their story and put it in a book, and then they would like get pissed off?
No, there's always a little bit of real life in your stories. In the new book I'm writing, there's a stylist, a woman that helps to pick clothes and accessories and so forth for the heroine and another one of the characters. That's based off of a stylist that I've personally worked with, and yet she is nothing like her.
Okay.
You know, the job is similar. The effervescence of her personality is similar, but other than that, there's nothing else. So when you of course, you should be using your imagination. You should be inventing things that don't actually exist, and then kind of framing them or accessorizing them with bits and pieces of reality to make them real. So, you know, in that case, they'll go, hey, you know, I do that too. And it's like, yeah, you inspired, you know, something. I wrote a story in 2019 about a couple that's dealing with the loss of their child. One of my best friends, her son lost a child.
Okay.
And seeing the grief that her family was going through and just the trauma of it and how it separated everybody and then put them back together in a different place. I wrote a book about that. It's called Butterfly and Frost. And it's there. You guys have it there too. I'm trying to remember what the name of it is. But it's also available in Romanian. And that couple is, of course, their trauma is based on something really close. And when I finished that book, I sent it to that friend, and she knew when I was writing it. I said, I'm going to write a story about bereavement, about grief, about child loss. And they understand that those characters are completely fictionalized. That what they're going through is a very general thing that her family has gone through. But so, you know, in that way, if you're doing your job, you're inspired by things, but what you're writing is entirely made up.
Yeah.
It's not somebody real.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's because I think this is important. But, you know, they say at times that writers actually write about themselves. I mean, there's that character in a book that it's himself. So in all these books that you wrote, is there in some book, is there you over there? A little bit of you? That's a tricky question, I know.
I think every heroine has some of me. And especially in how they attack things, you know, is very similar. Their inability to give up, you know, to you can knock us down, but you're going to get back up again. That, because I have to write about women that I admire, right? And all of the women in my life are women who have gotten back up again, who've dusted themselves off, who started over, who moved on. Most of them are entrepreneurs. They run their own businesses. I'm just gravitated to strong women. And so that you'll see that in all of my heroines, you know, that all of my characters are like that. And that just comes from one, either things that I have done or things that I wish that I had been strong enough to do.
Wow.
Or from, you know, a woman that I know who that strong. So, that part of it comes, of course, from me. And of course, loving sex, I couldn't write about sex the way I do if I didn't love it, if I didn't enjoy it, if I didn't find value in it, if I didn't feel it's a wonderful communication tool between people. I had to stop there because I didn't want to say between two people. It could be between 3 or 4 people. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're intimate and expressing yourself and communicating and giving a piece of yourself and accepting a piece of somebody else, there's no limit to that, right? All of that is me.
All of that is you. Now, your fans, Romanian fans, are looking at this interview, and I'm sure that they're very happy to hear you speak and to see you. You have this naturalness and this authenticity in what you say and what you do and who you are. And would you like just send them a message through this interview? Just send them a message of, a message. Whatever. What you want.
One of the beautiful things I think that we have now is how small the world can be, that we can connect to each other. There was a time when I first started reading where if I really enjoyed a book, what I would have to do is write a letter on a piece of paper and stick it in an envelope and put it in the mail and send it to the publishing house and wait for them to get through it and then forward it to the author and hope that they heard me. With social media and mediums like this Zoom conversation that we're having right now, it's able to bring us a lot closer than we were before.
Yeah.
If I touched you through my books, that's almost there's a level of distance involved in there than there is from this conversation that I'm having with you right now, right? You're getting more of me through this than you could get from reading a book that I wrote. The ability to communicate with readers this way and to be able to read your notes to me, to interact with you on social media, to talk with you on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, all those things are hugely important to me. And I thank everybody who reaches out to me. I think everybody who spends time to watch this. I know, taking 30, 40, 50 minutes out of your day to listen to me talk about things that I'm doing. That's a level of interaction that is so valuable to me. It means so much to me. Thank you so much for reading my work.
I did, yes, and I loved it.
Hope you enjoy it.
I'm looking forward to your new books. And as you were saying about social media and that the world is small, here we are virtually, like face-to-face, virtually. I could consider you my new friend now because we talked so much and we opened up subjects that are, delicate, but you really inspired me today. And at LibFest, because it's a festival that is connecting people who love to read. LibFest is an online festival. So there are around 300,000 Romanians that actually in 4 days are going online to read and look out for new books. So they're going to see this interview, and I'm sure that you will inspire them and that they will look forward to, to your new projects. So it will be surprising. I'm sure it will be. And thank you very much. Really, it is an honor for me. Yeah.
I loved it. I had a great time.
Believe me, I've just come with an airplane, like 10, 12 hours on the airplane, and we had a detour, and I was like,
look at you. You look just so fresh and beautiful, and you would never know. If I spent 10 hours on a plane, you would know.
Thank you.
I see it on me. You look fantastic.
I was just looking forward to speaking with you, and that gave me the energy, So tiredness was like, oh, okay, go away. I have a meeting with Sylvia now,
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. And you just work, and don't forget to, when you launch your books, and they will come for sure in Romania through the publishing house Litera. I can hardly wait to read them,
Yes.
But I would actually love to read them in English. But I would talk to Litera. I would talk to Litera. Maybe they can give me the books like the original ones from you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Have a great day there in Las Vegas. Today it was snowing in Bucharest, but I'm sure that our weather is going to change. Yours is going to stay the same. I know Las Vegas is like 30 degrees, 30 degrees, 30, 40 degrees always.
Yeah, we're trying to enjoy it where it's at right now, because we know that, it's just gonna keep climbing until it's one of the 7 circles of hell.
I know, but what is Vegas is Vegas. It's unique. I love it. Well, hopefully we will meet again maybe. And if you like this discussion, maybe we can continue like a series.
I would love that.
Yes, I'm really glad that I met you. Thank you. Thank you very much for your time, Sylvia. All the best.
You too. Bye.
Bye.